Hey there, it's Tiffany of Clarity, Confidence, Courage, Next Level Success. Welcome or welcome back. So I want to do this quick video to talk about something I was thinking about today when it comes to speaking. I used to get so frustrated and so upset when people used to say this to me. I'm going to tell you what it was. I remember before I got into speaking world and became a professional speaker, I used to have to speak during consulting. In the consulting world, I used to be a consultant. And so I used to have to do these long, massive trainings, like a week long, 2 weeks long, where I was every single day waking up doing these day-long trainings with groups of people, right? And I can remember people saying to me, Tiffany, you speak so well. You are so well spoken. You're so articulate. And I would get so offended. And I'm thinking, what did you expect me to sound like? Of course I speak well. Of course I'm articulate. What else would I be? And this happened a lot, not just at that job, but a lot of different jobs, a lot of different companies I've been at. People in the audience, people just in general, people would say to me, I love your voice. I just love hearing you speak. And I would, again, get a little offended and annoyed. Like, what are you saying? What does that actually mean? What are you trying to imply? And as I've gotten more mature and a little bit older, and now, especially in the speaking business, I realized something. People are not saying that I speak so well because they think I wasn't going to speak well. People are saying that they're impressed that I'm articulate and I speak so well because the majority of the population doesn't. Let me repeat that. Most people on a daily basis, when you speak to them, listen to what they're saying. Even if it's a CEO of a company, listen to how they speak. Do they pause? Do they stutter? Do they say and ah and oh? Do they have crutch words? I had someone tell me recently, of course they know I'm a speaker, but they were like, it's amazing to hear you speak, Tiffany. You don't say or ah or ooh or like. You're so direct and clear. And I was thinking, that's because I've practiced. And when I think back, all those times where I was offended, I realize now, maybe there might have been a few people that were, had ill intentions, but the majority, I think, of people that were saying that to me were honest. Because they probably couldn't get in front of a group of people and do a training without saying and ah and and so what and they don't have that skill set. And so it was really a compliment most of the time, probably from people that noticed that I do speak well and I am articulate. And I say this to say the reason why this is so important is because I want you to understand, especially in professional world, when it comes to being an executive, if you're a rising executive, if you're a rising mid-level manager, and you want to be able to communicate with your team, communicate with your supervisors, communicate with your staff, you need to understand how to communicate effectively, to communicate with confidence, but especially to communicate clearly. And communication isn't just about being articulate. Communication is also listening. Are you listening to what people are saying and then responding appropriately? Communication is also your body language. How does your language show up when you're speaking? If you're saying, yeah, that's great. Someone is probably going to say, I don't think you're sold. I don't think you like what I just said. Because your body language is saying something different. Communication is also the ums and ahas and the crutch words, because those things hold you back from being clear, and it almost makes you look nervous or anxious. It's hard to take people seriously no matter what their status is when every other word is and so what, and they're reaching for their next breath, right? And I'm not saying you shouldn't be nervous when you speak. They say that most people, of all the things they're afraid of outside of death, public speaking is like the number one thing. So when you think about communication, understand yes, communication is a skill set. And it's not just the communication, again, of the words that are coming out of your mouth. It's your listening abilities. It's your emotional intelligence. It's understanding critical thinking skills. Like, what did that person just say? How do I respond to that in a way where I let them know, I heard you. I heard what you said. This is what it sounds like. Is that correct? Okay, if that is correct, here's the answer based on what my brain just processed. That's critical thinking. Now, you wouldn't say that out loud, right? But you're using your brain and your critical thinking skills to then process the words that are coming out of your mouth. In other words, you're not reacting. You're listening and you're being proactive and you're thinking actually about what they said. Not how it made you feel, not out of emotion, but you're being proactive to respond appropriately. And this is so important in the professional world. I don't care how a person speaks to you. If they're nasty, if they're loud, if they're angry, if they're rude, that's their stuff. You have to have control over yourself. And that requires a strong level of maturity and emotional intelligence. So this idea of speaking, it's a combination of how you speak, making sure that you articulate your words, making sure that what you're saying is clear, making sure you don't use a lot of crutch words, but also what you say, making sure that you listened. You have critical thinking skills. You process what you heard because you were listening and you gave an answer that was appropriate. Making sure you have control of your body language and your emotions. Just because they're emotional doesn't mean you need to be emotional. Respond appropriately, directly, in some cases firmly, but always have control and poise. And also understanding that when it comes to communication and speaking, it is truly a practice. Yes, I have education. And in my education, psychology and public health, I had to do a lot of presentations in my educational background, which got me accustomed to standing in front of groups, giving presentations, understanding how to speak to audiences. So that was number one. That was a lot of practice. And then I had jobs and careers where I had to do the same thing. I had to do a lot of presentations and a lot of trainings. So I had to stand in front of groups and speak, practice. And then as I got further into my career and understood, wow, every single thing that I've been involved in requires me standing in front of groups and speaking. I want to get better at it. So I joined Toastmasters. Again, practice. I worked on myself. I worked on my craft. And even now as a professional speaker, I'm still working on being a better speaker. So when it comes to speaking, when it comes to communication, it's not just something you do, it's something that you practice. And so when you speak and when you're articulating your words and you're finding the right words to say and you're being clear to your audience and you're listening and using your critical thinking skills and your emotional intelligence, and it's all happening at the same time, more than likely someone's going to come up to you afterwards and say, "You speak so well." And just know, no reason to get offended. They're actually giving you a compliment because the general population is not on that level. Not because they can't be, but because they haven't given themselves the opportunity to hone the skill set. So I just wanted to do this video because I thought it was so funny. Again, earlier today, someone was like, "Wow, you just listening to you is amazing." And I thought to myself, thank you. Thank you. I've worked on it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments. Have you ever had someone tell you that? Like, "Wow, you speak so well." And if so, how did you feel about it? Hope to talk to you soon. As always, if you haven't, be sure to share, like, subscribe. Link is in my bio. Talk to you soon. Bye.